What is up, psychedelic investors? We have a special episode for you today. We're going to be talking all about MindMed's patent strategy and the strategy revolving around their IP or intellectual property. So I already know that you guys are aware that patents and IP are super important because it allows companies to protect their innovations and essentially recoup any sunk costs that they put into research and development by giving them a set period of time that only they can profit from any inventions that they developed. Now, given the importance of patents, some people have actually reached out to me by email and on Reddit and asked me, hey James, how come you've never talked before about MindMed's patents? For example, if you go to their investors deck, you will see that they have 45 plus different patent applications. And you guys are totally right. We definitely don't have 45 videos on the subject matter. So that brings us to the question of why haven't we talked about their patent strategy before? And that is simply because we actually don't know what most of these patent applications even are. Sure, we know a few of them. For example, of course, we know the LSD neutralizer. We've done like 4 episodes on that. We know about their agitation algorithm that aims to notify a caregiver using artificial intelligence whenever a patient gets agitated. But for the majority of them, we actually have zero idea what most of these 45 plus patent applications are. Now, this might seem a little bit strange to you, but to understand why, we need to first understand MindMed's approach when it comes to intellectual property. And rather than listening to me blabber on and stutter and make all these mistakes, blah, 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 I think it would be much more interesting to listen to the CEO of the company, or the interim CEO of the company himself, Rob Barrow, discuss it. He is much better with words than I will ever be, so we will go ahead and throw that up. This video comes from the fireside chat that he gave for investors like a month ago or maybe 2 months ago. Although, spoiler warning, there is no fire in this fireside chat, which kind of triggers me, but whatever. So we're going to go ahead and play this clip, and afterwards we'll break down what he said, and then we're going to go into it a little bit deeper.
Opportunities for how to expand our label and target new geographies that will allow us to have the most impact and the biggest rollout that will drive both value and public good. I also think it's worthwhile for a second to talk a little bit about intellectual property, particularly with the psychedelics. There's been a very public debate about this at various times. I know Christian Angermeyer at Atai has been openly discussing this with a variety of those who are less intellectually property inclined. We are going to be very focused on true innovations that we have. And there are some. I mean, it is not the case that we did not invent LSD, the molecule, right? We all know that Albert Hofmann was the one who came across this at Sandoz. That long predates MindMed. That is not exactly what we have done. But what we can do and what we have been doing is we're making specific advancements beyond just physiochemical characteristics, but particular formulations that we assess that are looked at driving IP. There's also an entire everyone associates intellectual properties just with patents. That is one key tool in the intellectual property bucket, but it is not the only one. And we're going to certainly utilize our tools to maximize our commercial opportunity and maximize the ability we have to ensure high quality delivery of medications ultimately, and to ultimately drive access that we believe can be done with high quality and the tools that we're developing to roll it out at scale. We will not, though, and for those of you who perhaps see at times we are less vocal about every new patent filing we have, some organizations like to say every time they file a provisional patent application, and that's fine, that's good for them. There's actually an enormous commercial value to holding your cards close to your chest, to not going out every time you file something and saying, "Hey, this is what I have." As soon as you disclose what you've been working on and what your technology you believe is, it gives everyone else an opportunity to work around it. So we have the ability through the patent system for any provisional patent filings. It can take upwards of 18 months before those disclosures become public with any level of specificity. And so we're going to continue to utilize that strategy. File intellectual property, think creatively about how to protect our market share, but also at the same time, not get ahead of ourselves and not go out publicly every time we do something and say, "Oh, look at this new shiny object that we have." We're going to say, no, we have a long-term strategy and we're going to deliver on that strategy and protect our value by advancing our programs and advancing our iterative intellectual property to a point where we feel very confident in it, and then we'll make a much bigger splash if we're ultimately successful in that endeavor. We'll make a much bigger splash by saying, not only here's what we hope to get one day, but here are the claims we do have, and here's how we are protecting it. So we appreciate everyone's. I know that the time course in drug development and intellectual property can be long. We appreciate everyone's patience through that process, but we know it's going to be the best strategy for us, our organization, and driving value going forward.
So the very first thing that I want to highlight is the assertion that they're only patenting quote unquote real innovations. Now, rightly or wrongly, companies like Compass Pathways and Atai Life Sciences have in the past been accused of over-patenting or essentially patent trolling. So what this is saying when people accuse them of this is that these companies are trying allegedly to limit competition by patenting things that shouldn't really be patented because they're not real innovations and they frankly should be in the public domain. So I'm not going to wade into that debate, but there is a debate around Atai and Compass when it comes to this subject. So what Barrow is saying here is that MindMed is planning on taking a completely different approach and only attempting to patent true innovations. Well, the big question that comes out of that is, what the heck is a true innovation? So I got 3 different areas, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but I think these are the 3 main areas of true innovations that MindMed is patenting. First, modifying current classic psychedelics. So, for example, you guys all know that MindMed is using LSD for a variety of different treatments, and one of the things that they want to do in the medium to long term is to be able to shorten the duration of an LSD trip from around 8 hours to 2 hours, which would mean that therapy sessions could be much shorter and therefore much cheaper, making LSD therapy much more accessible to the average person. So that's the first kind of true innovation that they're working on, is modifying current psychedelics like LSD. The second one is creating completely new psychedelic compounds. So as I'm sure all of you guys know, maybe like half a year ago around that time frame, MindMed acquired a company called MindShift, which is working on exactly this, creating entirely new psychedelic compounds through computer modeling. The third area of true innovations that MindMed is working on, and again, not an exhaustive list, is digital technologies. So you guys all know, and you should know, I say it in like every 3rd episode, that MindMed wants to view themselves and wants people to view them not only as a mental health company, but also as a technology company. They are developing digital platforms that use deep learning algorithms to help diagnose and treat patients. So any innovations that they have in this sector will of course be true innovations that they hope to patent. But the really important piece of information is what Rob Barrow says after he talks about true innovations, that MindMed does not intend to publicize most of their patent applications until they absolutely have to. He talks about how it can be beneficial in the long run to hold your cards close to your chest and not let the competition know what you're doing. They have 18 months to disclose what their patent applications cover, so it would make sense that they don't disclose until they have to. Why tip off the competition? Now, of course, this can be a bummer for me, who wants to see everything they can as soon as possible, and then, of course, share all that information with you guys. But honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Barrow says that unlike other companies, they are not going to go out with every patent application they have and put out a press release and be like, hey guys, look at this shiny object that we have for you now. Isn't it amazing and shiny and great? I mean, to be fair, I kind of want to see the shiny and great and fantastic and amazing object, but you know, it makes sense. They need to protect their IP and shareholders' long-term value. Trade secrets are going to be important in this race, as Barrow hinted at when he talked about how there are other tools available for protecting IP other than patents. And ultimately, they will make a bigger splash when they reveal the final products that have undergone the entire iteration process in secret. Now, going back to the investors deck, we can see that of the 45 plus different patent applications, 10 plus of them are for LSD. So this is probably for treating depression, or specifically how they're using it to treat depression, anxiety, probably the method of production, definitely their LSD neutralizer, which like I said, we've talked about all the time on this channel before. They got 3+ that cover 18-MC, so that's probably the chemical format, the makeup rather. It's probably the method of production for it, and then how they plan to use it to treat people. And then, much more interesting, the part that I am most excited about is this 30+ NCEs covered. Now, an NCE is a chemical, it's a new chemical entity. That's the N in it, a new chemical entity. Or, in other words, a brand spanking new drug. So these drugs are the ones that we talked about in the second type of real innovation, the brand new drugs. And these are probably still like 5, 10, maybe even 15 years away because they haven't even started the clinical trial process yet. They haven't even started phase 1 trials. Who knows what the timeline even is for those to start phase 1 trials or how many of them will ever do that. So the way I see these NCEs, these new chemical entities, they're kind of like MindMed 2.0 in 10, 15 years. Once we have all this data and a track record of treating patients with LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, DMT, etc., and then we can move on to the new purpose-built chemical entities, new chemical entities that MindMed has developed. So this is both the most exciting and kind of also the least relevant for the short term for MindMed shareholders, just because it is exciting to think about the long term, but we have so much time to go before any of these see the light of day, so we're probably not going to hear about them for a long time. So I really hope that this video, at least in part, helped explain why we haven't really talked about MindMed's patent strategy and intellectual property strategy before, and it's simply because we don't really know what most of their patents are. One that we do know of that is super cool is their collaboration with BioXL to create a wearable piece of technology that scans your heart rate, your blood pressure, your respiration rate, and so much more to detect, using machine learning, when a person is about to have an agitation episode and contact their doctor or caregiver before this episode turns into a crisis, before it escalates into a scenario that nobody wants to be in. So if this sounds cool and futuristic, using these machine learning algorithms to help stop people from having panic attacks and other types of episodes before they even happen, I definitely suggest checking out our latest episode on the topic. I will put it on our screen now. And if you enjoyed this episode, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, show the video to your dog, share it with your mom, hit that notifications bell, hit the button, and comment down below how your day is going today. Because I'm just checking in on you, homie. I want to know how you're doing. I'm doing great. How are you doing today? Until next time, I'm James from the Psychedelic Investor.